Nisam Bulavinaka, Namaste, Noy Maori, and welcome back to another episode of Back in Time, Season 6, 2019. In today's program, we take a closer look at discussions from the 1999 Food Summit. We visit the curio shops in Suva and the government printery in Vatuanga. We begin our program with food, the major global problems related to food, nutrition, and sustainability. The focus of the 1999 Food Summit in Rome. It is the hope of the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization that the summit will identify policies needed at national, regional, and international levels to wipe out global hunger and malnutrition.
World Consumer Rights Day was the launching pad for a global campaign by the international consumer movement to influence the outcome of the summit in Rome to promote safe and nutritious food for all. Although the world produces more than enough food for everyone, millions still go hungry every day. The FAO estimates that 800 million people worldwide are chronically undernourished. So what's the problem? Experts call it a food security problem. Food security is achieved when everyone has access to enough safe and nutritious food to be able to lead a healthy and active life. The problem these days is not that people physically can't get the food they need, but that they cannot afford to buy the food that's available. In every country, it's the poor, and more often than not, the women and children who suffer the most. Over the last 50 years, the food we eat and the ways in which we produce, promote, and sell it have changed quite dramatically. A notable impact is the explosion in advertising, inducing people to buy more processed and preserved foods, adding to the mountains of waste generated by consumers, not to mention the damage they could do to our health. Some of the concerns the consumer movement wants the Rome Summit to tackle include the amount of chemicals and drugs that make their way into foods. Another issue is the intensive rearing of animals, leading to the spread of disease. All these changes have made food, always a sensitive issue, the subject of heated debate amongst consumer organizations.
The message I think has to go out to the Fiji consumers is that they are the ultimate decision maker. They got to be properly informed and given the necessary information in advertising so that they can make informed decisions and informed choices.
The amount spent on advertising varies enormously among different types of food products. In the United Kingdom, for example, with 15% of advertising spent on chocolate cakes and pastries and less than 1% on fresh fruit and vegetables, these figures suggest that food advertising helped companies reach their youngest customers.
Our main concern is that this advertising should not be misleading or deceptive. And while it is difficult to prove this in court, it is important for the advertisers to know of their responsibility.
Attractive packaging is another effective means of catching the attention of children and encouraging them to pester their parents to buy the product. The industry has many different and often subtle ways of advertising food to children, with television being a key tool. A survey by the United Kingdom's Food Commission found that if children watched commercial television for 1 hour each school day and all Saturday morning, they would see 92 ads for food and drink in 1 week. Fortunately, this isn't the case with Fiji yet. Many of the food advertisements on television feature cartoon characters. Funny and familiar faces help very young children recognize a particular product brand. Advertisements also reach children at school. Teachers who are short of resources may be tempted to use the often cunningly disguised promotional material sent to them by the food industry as posters, handouts, or games. But children are not the only target of company advertising strategies. In many women's magazines, advertisements are often disguised as recipes or tips for healthy lifestyles. These advertorials blend with other articles and appear to give the magazine's endorsement to the product. Sponsorship of sporting events is another way in which the food industry seeks to influence adults. As awareness grows about the unhealthy aspects of Western diets, advertisers are happy to claim that products are low-fat, sugar-free, or low-calorie. In developing countries, the population shift from rural to urban areas means that more people are now exposed to Western food advertising and marketing techniques. Rising incomes also mean they have more money to spend on food. Under the influence of advertising, many people choose to spend their money not on traditional foods, but on Western-style processed food.
From the money that they get, they buy imported food. This is the irony of the situation. It's people's attitude, and it is that problem that we have to overcome.
Since colonial times, developing countries have been growing crops for the North. The international consumer movement reports that commodities like sugar, cocoa, and vegetable oils now face serious problems as prices are depressed and farms have to sell their products below cost. Biotechnology research on tropical crops and their products is heavily concentrated with transnationals searching for cheaper raw materials. They've already used biotechnology to replace a substantial part of the sugar exports from developing countries, resulting in the collapse of entire economies in the Caribbean and of the sugar-growing regions in the Philippines. According to the report, biotechnology puts the very future of sugarcane as a commodity crop at risk. These are some of the issues the consumer movement wants consumer groups to work together with development, farmers, and environmental organizations to ensure that the new biotechnology is created for the good of all, not just a handful of large companies. The 20th century has been a remarkable period in terms of food production. But high input agriculture carries with it risks and costs to consumer, health, to wildlife, natural ecosystems, and to biological diversity. Many believe we need a new approach to improving food production, one that works more in harmony with natural ecosystems and a social structure to wipe out hunger. That's what sustainable agriculture is about.
Welcome back. In this segment, we take a serious look at the preservation of an age-old long traditional art form. While curio shops or vendors at the Handicraft Center have been a huge attraction for visiting tourists to the city, there is concern over the preservation and longevity of the skill. Many curios have called for a competition as one of the many initiatives to preserve the skill.
Well, I worked for almost 15 years. Had it up to here. I thought I'd try something, doing for myself. And I had a little baby to take care of. And I found it more convenient that I do something for myself and take care of my baby at the same time.
Well, in this business here, since 1963, till now, still in the same business. We used to be in the old market, the vegetable market. And from there, in 1978, we moved to the city council building, and since then, I'm still here. Still doing the same thing, but the business is not as good as it used to be before.
Emma Robinson and Franco Prasad are two of the 74 curio vendors operating from the Civic Car Park. Emma has just been in the business for the last 3 years because she needed the time to be with her young family, a move she's never regretted. Franco, 51, on the other hand, is an old hand at this. He's been a curio vendor since he was 15, but it's something he wouldn't urge his son to take up. It's a great big family atmosphere out here. Everyone knows each other, and there is no outward sign of aggressive competition or hard sale tactics. That's what curio vendor is all about. Curio is a word shortened from curiosity, meaning unusual or rare article valued as a collector's item. That's what one would expect to see in a curio shop. Unusual? Yes. Rare? Yes. And valuable? Maybe. All this and more greets one when browsing through Suva's curio shop. So, if you're the curious type, this may be the place for you, where you can browse through to your heart's content. The sale of curio handicrafts items began in the 1950s when there was an increase in the tourism industry in the country. In those days, curio vendors operated from the market, but because of the increase in people wanting to sell craft for a living, the city council built a civic car park for curio vendors specifically. Franco recalls articles sold during those early days being quite genuine, and there was a set rule that no non-local items were to be sold. In particular, trinkets were not allowed, and according to Franco, these were never displayed, but had their special place under the stall tables.
What are we selling now is just imitations. What we used to sell, say about 20 years back, was a real Fijian handicraft. And those were made from a timber called Nawa Nawa. Those timber mostly get from Kandavu and up from Lamasa side. And only the people from Lauan, those who were Lauan from Lau, they were the only one who could carve. But nowadays you see other people living up, well, maybe the generation, living up in Nasinu or somewhere else, they can just do the carvings.
For the people that sell here, business starts at 8 each morning to 5 in the afternoon. Business hasn't been good, and this, according to the vendors, has been because tourist boats don't call in as often as they used to. Tourists to Suva are normally here for a day or two only, but tend to go to the west more nowadays.
Before it's alright, there's plenty of boats coming in, good business. Yeah. Now it's the rent is too much too, Yeah.
Business hasn't been too good for the last month or so. But otherwise, with the locals, they are buying, they the ones who keep us going at the moment. Otherwise, for the tourists, we can't really depend on them. Maybe what we need is more promotion. Someone to promote Suva, for instance. I believe most of the visitors are all centered around Nandi. If we could get Fiji Visitors Bureau promote Suva, we'd be able to sell more, and rent has gone up this year. Most of the vendors here cannot afford that.
Franco and Dale, 2 out of the 6 from the old school, agree that business hasn't been good. Franco says these sort of arts and craft items can now be found throughout Fiji, which is not helping their business at all.
In those days, we used to buy the timber from Fijian people and get these people to carve for us. So they used to charge by inch. So maybe it's $1 each or 50 cents, whatever the size is. See? Now you take a tanua. In those days, about 20 years back, the only tanua you can find was besi tanua, and all carved in Lau or Kambara. But now you can see the rain tree tanuas, rain tree besi, bye-bye tanuas. That's imitations. Now they turn the thing on the machine, and before it was all hand carved. So it's good. Now you might have seen carvings from Vanuatu, carvings from Solomon Islands. Those are the genuine ones. We used to have something like that a long time ago.
The capital's property manager, Mahendra Subdev, says there's a need for curio vendors to be accommodated.
We are going to revise the charges further next year, and that will be $6.81 per day or $170 per month. The charges are fairly comparable. The council has spent about $60,000 to $70,000 to upgrade the Curio Handicraft Center, make it more beautiful, make it more attractive for the tourists when they come. And the objective is to make a place which is conducive to not only vending, but also conducive for the tourists to come in and mingle with the local populace.
There's demand for curio vending in the country, but there's also a need for control standards to ensure that genuine artifacts and quality products are marketed.
Art and craft, curio and handicraft items, they are a very significant part of art and craft in any country. They represent the soul and the spirit of the nation, and it is time now for us to ensure that some sort of competitions are organized so that there is some encouragement given to little indigenous people to reactivate their skills, which we are now in the process of losing.
While the selling of genuine articles is not common, here at the curio shops anything from tickets, carvings and even other Pacific arts and crafts can be found.
Good evening. This is our final segment for tonight's program. Exercise books, notebooks, government gazette and books on the laws of Fiji, to name a few, are the responsibility of the government printry when it comes to printing. It plays an integral role as government's communication platform and channels, and tonight we take a closer look at its internal operations.
Often taken for granted, the government printing department is an integral part of government's communication process. It gives permanence to the dictum of government. It's the home of the Fiji Gazette. It's the source from which reports of many shapes and forms is produced. In other words, almost all the printed forms, receipts, reports, bills, acts and enactments are set in type forms and produced here.
Naturally, things have expanded. The role has expanded, and now we are printing gazettes, supplements, the bills, acts, parliamentary papers, and now in a big way we're printing all the examination papers. That's Form 4 exams, Form 6, even Form 7, and they're big. They're quite a big exercise that we do. And we print also school textbooks, as you will notice from the display outside. These links, link 1, link 2, link 3, link 4, and maths 3, maths 4. All those are various textbooks.
Under the colonial administration, the government printry was first set up in 1871 at Levuka in Ovalau. However, with the relocation of the government services to Suva in 1883, the printing section occupied the site of the present Defence Club. It was later moved to a building on the corner of Carnarvon and Kimberley Streets, which now houses the National Archives of Fiji. However, printing services were shifted to Watuanga in 1978 as the demand grew rapidly for printed materials from government departments.
We're charging departments. Before, all the printing votes come to the government printing from government until I think in about middle 70s, we decided that each government will have its own printing route, and if they want printing to be done, they pay us by the issue of departmental warrants. We are operating on something on commercial basis by charging government departments. The only the institution we are not charging is Parliament, because we are given money to be able to serve their purpose.
There are 4 major stages in printing: desktop publishing, plate making, printing and binding. The department has automated processing equipment, including computer typesetting, 2-color roll-in perfector, graphics perfect binder and graphics collator. The processing of printing plates is similar to still photography. Documents have to be photographed before negatives are prepared. This then has to be exposed for color illustration.
When we talk about printing, it's that it's not only the sort of photocopying procedure. It's more complex in the sense that there are a lot of activities involved before you come to the final product. And that, in that sense, that we depend a lot on other support services in order for us to get the final product. Now, by having said that, you have a lot of processes that contribute to the printing product.
This offset has the ability to print 12,000 copies an hour, and the two-color perfector is the latest edition. The letterpress is still in perfect shape and is continuously used because of its limited wear and tear and cheap maintenance costs. 32 pages can be folded at once, which makes the task much easier and faster. This is then stacked in the gathering section for binding. 800 books of this size, consisting of 260 pages each, are bound within an hour, and trimming is done to give the books an even shape. Apart from saddle stitching, some books of larger shape are manually bound. Gold blocking service is also provided. At any one time, the department keeps paper stocks worth $1 million, which it imports from all over the world. Mr. Suva says he's mindful of government plans to corporatize government institutions.
We are thinking about it seriously because if the government decide that we should corporatize, we have to go that way. Though before that we would discuss with the committee looking at this bill and probably highlight some of the things that we feel that should be considered before the decision is taken. Because even at the moment, I believe you take FPTL, they are almost a monopoly, almost a monopoly. And yet they feel comfortable at corporatization than privatization. And when you talk about us as the government printing, we're not a monopoly. There is a lot of big firms, printing firms around there. You take the Fiji Times, Universal, Printing Star, Printing Oceania. These will become very stiff competitors.
The government printing department will still be viable until there's a definite input by the government and all government departments continue to use its services.
This public enterprise bill and all that they are trying to put together and get that passed in cabinet and parliament. And one of the institutions they're looking at is government printing to corporatize. I suppose some people are talking about the stages of commercialization and corporatization and then privatization. And as I said, government printing is earmarked as one of those. For government printing, at the moment we probably could term as the cheapest in terms of, because we just cater for government. Because our salary is already been paid for by government. And therefore when we quote for the jobs from government departments, we don't include wages as such.
Mr. Suva says a lot of cost-cutting measures have to be put in place to curtail overhead costs so that they are able to compete with commercial sector printers. The government printer is somewhat of a refuge of the arts, a place where the printed wood is verified and recorded before it's put out for public consumption. As a facility for human resource development, what it produces every day of the week, each week of the month, and every month of the year is for everyone's benefit.
And that is all for this week. I hope you enjoyed the program. You can get a copy from the Department of Information, Government Building Suva for only $20. Stay safe and join us again same time next week as we dig more into the chronicles of history.